single leading predictor variable for all major chronic diseases. So if we were going to fix just one thing, diet would be an excellent choice. The timing of this was also extremely interesting to me because it is a tale of what can hide in plain sight. We've all heard the expression familiarity breeds contempt. It certainly tends to breed complacency because what's familiar seems normal and what's normal doesn't seem like a crisis. So if you look at the date here, August of 2019, this was not too long for the tidal wave of COVID. And what these two authors, one of whom is a dean of nutrition at the time at Tufts University in the US, the other of whom is a former Secretary of Agriculture of the United States, what these two authors reported, based on the Global Burden of Disease Study, is that poor diet quality kills over 500,000 people prematurely in the US every year. The epidemiology here in the UAE is no better. The numbers are different because of population size. But 500,000 premature deaths a year. We juxtapose that with the toll of COVID. And in the US, when the toll of COVID crossed that same threshold, 500,000 deaths attributable to SARS-CoV-2, we had a national moment of reflection and silence and mourning. But poor diet quality, something over which we exercise complete control, exacts that toll every year. Year in, year out, and not just in the US, all around the modern world, and it hides in plain sight. Familiarity, breeding, complacency, if not contempt. This is the bad news. Diet is broken. We need to fix it. And among the many other things the Institute for Healthier Living is devoted to fixing, diet is very prominent on the list. And we absolutely do know how to fix it. In fact, we could fix it in 7 words. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. This is courtesy of Michael Pollan, famous science writer, known around the world. Very pithy wisdom. This is exactly right. How do I know it's right? Now, I've looked at the same issue. It just took me many more words to answer the question. So some years back, I was asked to do a commission review article and answer the question, can we say what diet is best for health? My conclusion was emphatically yes and emphatically no. No, we can't say that there's just one prescriptive, my diet can beat your diet approach to optimal nutrition that everyone should adopt. But emphatically yes to the basic theme of health promoting eating for the kind of animal we all are. We're all closely related biologically. If it stands to reason that dolphins should eat like other dolphins, and lions should eat like lions, and wildebeest like wildebeest, and we could go around the animal kingdom, it also stands to reason that Homo sapiens should eat like Homo sapiens. No big surprise that the basic theme of optimal eating for the kind of animal we are is consistent across all of our differences. But we can also accommodate those differences. So not one prescriptive, just my diet for everybody, but yes, to a basic theme of healthy eating. The evidence that supports this, which I tracked over the course of my career and folded into 4 editions of a nutrition textbook for health professionals, is vast. And it spans every kind of method from randomized controlled trial to observational epidemiology. But the evidence I like best is what actually happens to real people in the real world over timelines that really matter, like lifetimes and generations. We can't get this kind of information from randomized controlled trials. Randomized controlled trials these days exert a kind of tyranny. They're in the vanguard of the right kind of evidence, and very often we find ourselves being told if you don't have RCT data, you can't know. I've raised 5 children with my wife to adulthood. We were pretty confident they should not run with scissors, even though we never saw a randomized controlled trial on the topic. I've never seen a meta-analysis on the advantages of looking both ways before crossing a busy street. I highly recommend it nonetheless. A lot of what humans know is based on simple observation and pattern consistency. We do not need a randomized control trial to answer every question. In fact, most of what we humans rely on to get successfully through every day, we know from the consistency of our own observation. But ultimately, the purpose of randomized control trials or any other type of study is to approximate what would really happen if everybody did this. And sometimes we already have that answer. So the blue zones, which I trust you're all familiar with, give us that answer directly. What happens to whole populations over lifetimes and generations when they eat a particular way, exercise a particular way, interact with one another a particular way, and on it goes. We know about the blue zones courtesy of Dan Buettner, the National Geographic Fellow and world record holder in long-distance biking. These are 5 populations around the world so far, they're looking for more, where people routinely live to be 100, don't get chronic disease, and generally at the age of 101 or 102 or 104, die peacefully in their sleep at home, not in the ICU. Everything about that is a consummation devoutly to be wished. They live long, they prosper with vitality, they go gentle into that good night in the fullness of time. These are the blue zone blessings, and they're true across the globe, in Ikaria, Greece, Sardinia, Italy, Okinawa, Japan, Loma Linda, California, and the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. Very different populations, but they all adhere to the same basic theme when it comes to diet. So if we were to plot dietary characteristics from animal food predominant and ultra-processed food predominant in red on the left, to plant food predominant and real food predominant in, I think that's dark green, on the right, the blue zones predictably all cluster way over here on the right. They eat food, not too much, most of the time. And by the way, the not too much takes care of itself when you eat the right kind of foods. Calories count. Nobody wants to spend a lifetime counting calories. The best way to control the quantity of calories is to optimize the quality of foods you eat. Because wholesome foods fill us up on fewer calories. They activate the power of our native appetite satiety signals. That pathway is sabotaged by ultra-processed food. So the more you move in the direction of real food direct from nature, the more you regulate your appetite and satiety signals in a native, natural way that's comfortable. You eat until full and then you stop. And the calories sort themselves out. So in the blue zones, nobody's counting calories, but obesity is quite rare. So this is the formula for human health. It's clear. I'll be happy to answer questions later, but from my point of view, having spent 40 years looking at this issue, we are not clueless about the basic care and feeding of Homo sapiens. A health-promoting diet is perfectly clear. The bad news about diet, however, is not bounded by our skin. It extends to the entire planet. So the kinds of diets that prevail in the modern world that are undermining human health are also ravaging the health of the planet. As per the Atlantic here, your diet is cooking the planet. So our food is killing too many of us, and oh, by the way, it's killing the planet too. And in particular, the vulnerable parts of the planet. Just as poor diet doesn't affect every part of our bodies uniformly, there are vulnerable parts, the coronary arteries, for example. Similarly, the planet has vulnerable parts, fragile ecosystems, where we're doing the most damage most acutely. One of which, unfortunately, is an icon of nature, the Amazon rainforest. And I trust you're all aware of the news on that front. None of it good. The Amazon is near a tipping point where we will have lost so much of the volume of the rainforest that the rest will simply fade away. I'm hoping we can pull back from the brink, but I'm not sure. But what you may not know is that the single leading driver of deforestation in the Amazon is the global demand for beef. I don't think most people appreciate their steak, their hamburger, has anything to do with burning down the Amazon, but it does. And we'd be better off eating less of that. Our fellow creatures would be better off if we ate less of that. And it turns out the planet would be better off as well. So there's a fortunate confluence. And it's also fortunate that as constitutional omnivores, we can make choices. And part of what we're about here is making sure that people are empowered with options and empowered with information so they make informed choices. If you know your current dietary pattern is harming you, if it's harming your family, it's harming people you love. If it's harming the climate and harming the planet, that's important information. If you're also empowered with alternatives and how to get there, seems like a pretty good formula for dietary overhaul. We have choices. So we're looking to empower people to act on those choices. And one of the choices we have is a grand confluence, where what we do to promote our own health, and yes, we're talking about years in life and life in years, so we're talking about lifespan and health span, also redounds to the health of the planet. This has been examined a number of times over recent years, probably most famously in something called